Good day, boys and girls. Today we're going to take a look at superconstructors. But before I do that, let's give you a little bit of a background on constructors. Constructors are used to create objects. And in this animal class, we have two constructors. Both of them do different things. And you notice that this concept, knowing from the last video, is called overloading, where they have the same name but take in different parameters. Now, one is a generic constructor, takes in no arguments, and it just prints a statement that says generic animal created. The other one actually assigns a name and a type to the class. This is a more specific animal. Whenever creating the animal object, you will call one of these constructors. Now, in Java, if you do not already have a constructor in your class, say we eliminated both of these, Java will automatically or magically create a default constructor which takes in no arguments and does not perform any functions. It won't print anything, nor will it assign anything. That is always created for you in Java. However, if you decide to make a constructor like one of these here, that default constructor automatically gets overridden. That's very important, because once you make a constructor for a class, you must use it. There's no going back to the default constructor unless you get rid of the constructor you created. In this case, we created two, so you must use one of the two constructors that you built. Okay? Very important background. In the bird class, you notice that I also have two constructors as well, meaning one of them is overloaded, overloads the other constructor. Okay? All constructors call their parent constructor. In this case, bird down here and bird over here, depending on which constructor you call, will always call their parent's constructor. Now you'll notice that we have two constructors for its parent. Animal is a parent of bird, and we have two constructors. So which one will it call once this constructor is called? Well, the answer is the no-args constructor is implied if not specified. And that's what this keyword super means. Super means calling the parent's constructor. Now, a call to super, the no-args super, is implied if not specified, meaning it will call the parent's no-args constructor if nothing is specified. So down here in bird, we don't have anything specified. So whenever you call this constructor, it'll automatically call animal no-args constructor right here. Okay? Now, in this constructor for bird, you'll notice that we did specify which constructor to call. We want to call the one that takes in two strings. And that's this one right here. This one takes in two strings. So this constructor will be called whenever you called the specific bird constructor that takes in two strings. Okay? So a call to this, since we specified it, we'll go to a specific one. We did not specify it here, so it'll go to its no default, which is the no art constructor. Alright, very important. Okay, so let's take a look at an example of this. You noticed in test, I commented out everything else so we could get a clear look at what's going on. I put a comment called superconstructors, and I have the code down here for a generic bird. I declared bird, bird2 gets new bird, and you notice that I called the generic no arguments constructor of bird, which is this one here. And after it's all done, print out end generic bird. So, but what happens once this line is executed? Well, let's take a look. The first line says generic animal created. So let's take a look at the pattern. We first execute this line of code. We call the constructor, the no arts constructor of bird. That's here. But the first thing it must do is call its parent. We didn't specify which constructor, so of course, by default, we call the no arts constructor of its parent, which is animal. The no arts constructor is the one right here, so it'll perform this constructor, and in its constructor I have a print statement that says general animal created, which down here matches general animal created. That is done, goes back to bird, back to the constructor, and it performs this function, which all it does is a print statement saying that I am a generic bird. That is printed on the next line. And as you can see, the object, once it's created, ends off with end generic bird, because that's the next line after the object is created. Pretty simple. You might have to do it a couple times to keep track of it, but it's okay. Let's look at the second one. The second one is more specific. I'm actually calling the bird constructor that actually specifies a name and a type. Instead of taking one from the user, I actually hard-coded this so you could have, so you could be able to follow this one a little bit better than get confused by user input. So I went ahead and I hard-coded this one in. And the way I did that was I put a string here and I put a string here in quotes. The name of this bird that I declared, I called it Angry Bird, and is of type cardinal. Did you know that? The red one in Angry Bird is actually a cardinal. I just, learning all kinds of things while watching my videos. So, anyway, enough with my humor. The bird 3 will call the constructor for bird that takes in two strings. So, here's the constructor that takes in two strings. And you notice that I specify which parent constructor I want to go to. So, Angry Bird was passed in here. Cardinal was passed in here for this constructor. And I took both of those strings and I passed them into the parent constructor, because the parent constructor of animal that takes in two parameters takes in two strings. So I'm calling a specific constructor that takes in two strings. It calls this constructor, sets the name to Angry Bird, sets the type to cardinal, and then prints out a statement using the type plus, well, not plus, but concatenates animal created afterwards. So let's see what it printed when the object was created. Cardinal animal created, which matches up here. Cardinal was passed in here, sets the name, sets the type to cardinal, and when you print it, cardinal animal created, which is what printed here. Follow it back down to bird. this is already executed, so therefore it must be, you got to go to the next line, which is cardinal bird created. Type was cardinal, bird created. And then we end angry bird. The call to the parent constructor is always the first thing that the sub constructor always does. So if you make a super and you want to specify which constructor you want to do, you have to put it as the beginning statement in the constructor. It cannot be after it. It has to be right at the top, unless you have some comments like I did right here. Okay, then it doesn't count. The comments don't count. So this is technically the first line, and it's calling the parent constructor with 2 strings. And we were able to trace it by following the bird and animal. Now, let's take a look here. What if I modified it? To show you another example. Go ahead and comment out super. Now, what have we learned? We've learned that once this takes it, calls this constructor, if there's nothing specified, it'll call its parent's default constructor, which is the no arguments constructor. So it'll be this one here that gets called this time, because even though it kind of matches the parent right here, we're still going to call the no args constructor here because we did not specify anything up here. Let's take a look. We'll run this again. Save. And you'll notice that a general animal was created. Go up to animal. It printed general animal created on the first line. The second line it printed type, which is cardinal bird created, and angry bird. So it called its parent constructor of the animal because we did not specify to call the one with that accepts 2 strings. Okay, so you have to be very careful on how you call constructors and which ones you call specifically, because it could give you the wrong results if you don't call the right constructor. Let's run that again. Okay, it's changed back. Well, I hope this helps you in your code, and hopefully this helps you better understand how to use constructors and how they work. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.